キラークイーンと私はこいつを名付けて呼んでいる。
Hello everyone, xForts here, and before we get on to today's video, I just want to touch on a few things. The first being that this series is not about speculating and creating a scenario in which the two characters would fight to see who would win, but it's rather about analyzing the two, looking at the facts and looking at what their stands are capable of to decide which stand is better, and thus conclude that way which character would win in a fight. And in the last couple episodes, it seems that people were a bit confused by the nature of the series, so I just wanted to clear that up. And the second thing, I just wanted to thank everyone so much for all the crazy support on the video, and I would like to welcome all of the new subscribers to the channel. And also thank you to everyone for subscribing. That's all, now onto the video. So for today's episode of Standoff, we have two characters that blow shit up. Yoshikage Kira in his stand Killer Queen, and Oyecomova in his stand Boku no Rhythm wa Kaikura, which I'll be referring to during this episode as Boku no Rhythm. This episode will have a few rules just to keep things fair. We all know that Killer Queen is an interesting stand to say the least, so for this episode, Killer Queen will only have the abilities of its first bomb and sheer heart attack. So for this analysis and comparison, we will not be taking into consideration or talking about Killer Queen's Bites the Dust ability or it combined with Stray Cat, because if Killer Queen did have those abilities, there would be a clear winner here. So to kick off this episode of Standoff, the first stand we'll be analyzing is Yoshikage Kira's Killer Queen.
She's a killer queen, got integrity, dynamite with a laser beam.
Starting with appearance, Killer Queen is a humanoid type stand with its height and build reflecting Yoshikage Kira's, although Killer Queen is just slightly more muscular. Killer Queen has very simple facial features, without a nose and very small lips with a mouth that's usually closed, and its eyes resemble cat eyes with its vertical pupils. And also on the top of Killer Queen's head, it has two triangle shapes that resemble cat ears. As for the rest of Killer Queen's body, it mostly just resembles a white colored flesh. But Killer Queen has a signature logo that's scattered throughout various parts of its body. This symbol can be seen on Killer Queen's shoulders, the back of its hands, its belt, and also its pelvic area. And lastly, these symbols can be seen on the tops of his feet and also each side of his ankles. Killer Queen does sport various types of clothing. He sports dark studded leather-like gloves that start at his forearms and go all the way down to his hands. And he also has a belt and shoes in this same style. Now moving on to Killer Queen's abilities, starting with its primary bomb. Killer Queen's primary bomb allows it to turn anything it touches into a bomb. Killer Queen can only turn one object into a bomb at a time, but that object can be detonated multiple times because it will not be affected by the stand's explosion unless it's an actual human. Once Killer Queen's target touches the bomb or gets close enough to the bomb, Killer Queen detonates it by pushing down on his hand with his right thumb, as if this stand is holding a detonator and pushing the explosion button. Once Killer Queen pushes down, the explosion will occur immediately. When Killer Queen successfully erases an opponent using his bomb, it leaves no physical evidence behind. Everything is erased, including their body, clothes, and anything they were carrying on them. It's also possible to survive an explosion from Killer Queen if you're not too close to the bomb's explosion. But if you yourself have been turned into a bomb, it's game over. An interesting part of Killer Queen's explosion effect is that it does not affect the environment at all, only people and their stands. For example, Killer Queen turned a door handle into a bomb, and then when Shigechi touched that bomb, it transferred into his body and erased him and deleted him from existence with leaving no trace of evidence and also leaving everything around that area intact. The floor, the door, and even the door handle was perfectly fine. Although in the anime adaptation, the explosion does seem to be loud, but it does not seem to generate much noise to anyone around them, considering Josuke and Okyasu only heard Shigechi screaming Josuke very faintly, and even people in the hall when Shigechi exploded did not hear the effect, but that's also considering that only stand users would be able to hear the stand's noise. So Killer Queen's primary bomb is a pretty simple and pretty awesome ability. People always say that Killer Queen doesn't really fit Yoshikage Kira because he always wants to live a peaceful life and he just wants to quietly be a serial killer and his stand's all about explosions. But I think Killer Queen is a perfect stand for Kira. Yeah, his stand's about explosions, but it's explosions in the most stealth and discreet way possible. It's really less of an explosion and more of a fancy way to just erase someone out of existence. And with a giant explosion that will kill anyone who crosses Yoshikage Kira, there is no evidence of the explosion taking place at all, and I think it's really just a perfect stand for Kira's character. Killer Queen's stand stats are an A in destructive power, B in speed, D in range, B in durability, B in precision, and A in development potential. Now on to Killer Queen's next ability, being its secondary bomb, sheer heart attack. One of the most unique abilities in the series concerning sheer heart attack is a part of Killer Queen, but at the same time, it's an entirely new stand. It has entirely different abilities, appearance, and stand stats from Killer Queen, but at the same time is still part of Killer Queen. So to start off with sheer heart attack's appearance, it's relatively simple and it's a very small stand that sort of resembles an army truck with treads and its face being the symbol of Killer Queen, with only minor differences like a spike-shaped nose and also a knife on its forehead. And for the most part, the body of sheer heart attack is a spherical shape. Now on to sheer heart attack's abilities. It's a long-range automatic stand that detaches from Killer Queen as it's its left hand. The way sheer heart attack works is that it will seek out body temperatures and attack whatever has the highest temperature. So no matter what, sheer heart attack will always seek out something that has a hot temperature, rather that be a fire or an actual human. Sheer heart attack does not have the ability to prioritize, so if someone created multiple fires, sheer heart attack would focus on the fires before attacking a person. But the explosions that this stand creates are equivalent to the heat of the object. So something extremely hot like an actual fire will have an extremely large explosion. One of this stand's most notable abilities is its incredible durability, essentially being indestructible. Any damage that the stand takes is not reflected on Kira, as we saw Jotaro was able to physically damage the appearance of this stand with Star Platinum, but that did not reflect on Yoshikage Kira's hand at all. But when Koichi activated Echo's Act 3 to make sheer heart attack heavier, that definitely affected Kira's left hand and made it extremely heavy. Also, Kira cannot retreat with sheer heart attack at will. He has to physically go to where sheer heart attack is in order to deactivate it. Sheer heart attack stand stats are an A in destructive power, B in speed, A in range, A in durability, E in precision, and A in development potential. So now that we've analyzed Kira and his stand Killer Queen and also his sub-stand sheer heart attack, we can move on to the highlight moment. My personal favorite Kira and Killer Queen and sheer heart attack moment was when he came to a draw with Jotaro and Koichi, and then Josuke and Okuyasu arrived on the scene. Kira was the only one conscious at the time and asked Josuke to heal his wounds hastily, and Josuke realized that he was the enemy's stand user, and still after this whole situation where Kira was bloody on the ground and then had Josuke and Okuyasu confronting him, he still managed to escape from that situation. By using both of his stands, Killer Queen to chop off his arm and also sheer heart attack to use his arm to attack the Morio stand users. And after doing that, making a break to Cinderella to switch his face out and also turn her into a bomb. Yeah, before that, Kira did have a few embarrassing moments, like getting destroyed by Jotaro's Star Platinum and also getting caught by Josuke, but still, it was a great moment. Because Kira used both of his stands very smart to get out of a situation I really thought he wasn't going to get out of. Now that we've analyzed Yoshikage Kira's stand, Killer Queen, as well as his sub-stand sheer heart attack, and also looked at their highlight moment, we can finally move on to the next analysis, which will be Oyecomova's stand, Boku no Rhythm. Starting off with Boku no Rhythm's appearance, it's an interesting stand because it appears to be about the same size as most humanoid type stands, but it has the face of either a crow or a raven with a stitched up beak and two discs on the sides of its head. And most of this stand's body is covered up with a coat. And that's pretty much everything we can tell from this stand's appearance because of the little amount that we actually saw this stand in its full form. Moving on to the stand's abilities, Boku no Rhythm's main ability is its hair trigger. This allows the stand to insert time bombs into really anything. These time bombs take the form of small pins with clocks on them that can attach themselves to any surface. And these bombs are not limited to solid surfaces. So once the bombs are placed on something, if they're disturbed or taken off, this will produce an explosion after the pin has been removed. As we saw in the manga, these pins can go inside and can be placed on anything like water, the ground, people's skin, and almost even the air. If a cigarette is lit and the smoke traveling, the bombs can attach to the smoke. So if you have a bomb attached to you and you don't want it to explode, you have to hold it on yourself so it does not come off. But something simple as sweat in between the bomb and your skin can cause the bomb to explode. So it makes sense for Oyecomova to just carry around water and just throw bombs on people and then just toss water on them to make a layer of water in between their skin and the bombs to cause them to explode. As for the actual explosions that are produced from Boku no Rhythm's bombs, they're perceptible to everyone and not just stand users, and they also interact with the environment. And the explosions seem to be much larger than Killer Queen's. So this could be seen as a strength or a weakness just depending on the situation. But having your bombs interact with the environment definitely creates a more creative fighting style, considering you'll be able to manipulate the battlefield. Boku no Rhythm can place as many bombs as it wants, as we've seen it's managed to put a bomb on every single bee inside a beehive, so I would assume that this stand can place an infinite amount amount of bombs. If not that, it would be then hundreds. These bombs also work as a great defensive capability, because if you get a few bombs on your target, they're going to be using most of their limbs to cover up and hold on to those bombs, so it will leave them almost defenseless, and also unable to attack you. And if an opponent did come in physical contact you with an attack, that means you could just place a bomb on them because they physically touched you. So this stand could put opponents in really difficult situations, and you have to remember while all this is happening, if the opponents are sweating, that creates a layer on their skin that is between themselves and the bombs and will cause them to explode. So you could really see how annoying and how powerful this stand would be. Boku no Rhythm's stand stats are B in destructive power, C in speed, C in range, B in durability, E in precision, and C in development potential. As for the highlight moment, there wasn't really much to choose from because Oyecomova and his stand had a very short mini arc in Steel Ball Run, and only appeared for just a couple of chapters. So for the highlight moment, I'm just gonna have to say bombs and bees, because I mean, come on, that's pretty badass. So now that we've analyzed both of the stands, Killer Queen with sheer heart attack and also Boku no Rhythm, let's go ahead and compare the two to see which one's better. So the main ability that these stands have in common is being able to turn anything they touch into a bomb. But each of these stands have their limitations and each have their own strengths and weaknesses. And it's pretty obvious that both of these stands were designed for completely different combat situations. As Killer Queen is an incredible stand for stealth and assassination type attacks. As we saw, it was able to completely erase Shigechi out of existence in the middle of a school hallway without leaving a trace of evidence except for his own button. And his stand is able to just completely erase people out of existence so effortlessly, as all he has to do is touch something before someone else touches it, and it could be pretty easy to see what people touch just by following them around for a day, and we know how meticulous Kira is, and this would be no problem for him. If he really wants to eliminate Josuke, go to his house, touch his doorknob, go hide in the bushes, wait for Josuke to come home. So now comparing that type of stand to Boku no Rhythm, there's clear differences. That stand's explosion will leave a physical effect on the environment, and it wouldn't be too hard for other stand users to realize that there's been a stand attack there, and also it will alert tons of other people. So if Boku no Rhythm is really going for a stealth attack, he only has one try. So Boku no Rhythm is definitely not suited to be a stealth type stand, but rather in your opponent's face, trying to get bombs on them and just making explosions all over the place. And also putting your opponent in different situations that would be best suited for its ability, like getting them in water or like getting them near a beehive as we saw Oyecomova do. Although that was probably a coincidence, I'll give it to him. So it might seem that Killer Queen is a better stand because it can just completely erase people out of existence, but Oyecomova's stand, Boku no Rhythm, can do so much more than Killer Queen. Boku no Rhythm is not limited to just one bomb on an object at a time and can turn limitless amounts of things into bombs. And when you compare that to Killer Queen's main ability, it just falls so short. Another difference in their bomb effect is that Oyecomova's bombs work as a grenade type, as if the pin comes off, then they will explode. But with Killer Queen's bombs, there's only one at a time, and it has to manually detonate it. Once again, this can be seen as a strength or a weakness, and is another point to favor into Killer Queen's stealth abilities, as it can choose when it detonates its bombs. And that just reinforces again how limited Boku no Rhythm is in its stealth-based attacks. But at the same time, it shows how Boku no Rhythm trumps Killer Queen in its loud and non-stealth based attacks, as Boku no Rhythm is much more suited to taking on multiple different opponents at a time, when Killer Queen on the other hand has to strategize on getting all of its opponents close to the single bomb. So it's becoming obvious that each stand is better than one another, but just depending on the situation. Killer Queen being the clear superior stand when it comes to stealth, and Boku no Rhythm being superior in taking on multiple opponents and non-stealth based attacks. So we could just leave it at that, but we're forgetting about one thing: Killer Queen's sheer heart attack ability. So just Killer Queen's primary bomb alone makes for an amazing stealth-based stand, but when you add sheer heart attack, that's when the loud attacks come into play. Sheer heart attack is not going to hide, and it's going to be a stand that will show up and tell you that it's going to fuck you up and explode. Because of its nature and how it's an automatic stand, and Kira doesn't even need to think to operate it. There's nothing stealth about sheer heart attack, and it will just attack anything no matter what the situation is, depending on the body temperature. And the fact that this stand has no weaknesses and is indestructible. Yeah, we did see with Koichi's Echoes Act 3, you can make it heavy and then limit its mobility, but you're not going to stop the thing and you're not going to break it. So when you think about it, sheer heart attack was a damn OP stand with just a few weaknesses, not being able to prioritize and tell the difference between objects and humans. And if there wasn't a stand like Echoes Act 3 that had the ability to make things heavier, sheer heart attack would have been a major problem to the Morio stand users. But I'm sure eventually, even without Echoes Act 3, they would have thought of a clever way to stop it. But just the fact that this OP ability is just an add-on to Killer Queen, that's just a bit ridiculous, and makes for an extremely overpowered stand, not even including Stray Cat and Bites the Dust. So to conclude this episode of Standoff, if it was just Killer Queen's primary bomb against Oyecomova, it would be a split match. Killer Queen would be a much better stand for stealth attacks, and Boku no Rhythm would be a much superior stand for loud-based attacks. But when we factor in that Killer Queen Queen has the ability of sheer heart attack. That right there is what puts it above Boku no Rhythm as a superior stand. So that was today's episode of Standoff, and the superior stand is of course Killer Queen with sheer heart attack. There will be a card in the top right where you guys can vote on which stand you think is superior, and also be sure to like this video if I occupied your boredom for a little bit, or if you just enjoyed. And also subscribe for more JoJo's Bizarre Adventure videos.